how the business was driven, including marketing and sales, and it was a machine.
Most of the builders in the country are small builders like me.
Do you have a system for hiring the teams and training them accordingly to what you want?
I mean, I've had salespeople before, didn't do a proper job of training them. They failed.
It's more of an education-based selling. What qualities and they need to have on our team?
In a small company like this, where you're only building a couple of dozen houses a year, I think that salesperson needs to be the contact person. And most of the reasons people want to get out is because of the stress level. And that's where I'm at.
You've heard me say, Dennis, we all have winning lottery tickets in our pocket. We just need to know how to cash it in.
You surrounded yourself with people that can.
Okay, here we go on another episode. This one is our Freedom Builders calls. This is our monthly coaching calls with our clients in our core program. Guys, pause this video, grab yourself a piece of paper, a pen, get ready to take some notes. This one is going to be good.
A part of me is, I don't know, Dennis, you've had my heart, I think, a little bit about where you're going, what you want to do, selling the business. And, a part of this is like, I just want to help in whatever way we can to get you that biggest return and focus on the, the next couple of year plan to make that happen and those sorts of things. So I just thought it would be good to circle back, right? And kind of refresh on that.
I think to talk about, where, why we're doing it.
Yeah.
We have a goal, and we know there's some things we need to fix, and I know I need some help fixing those things. Not to get off track, but real quick, just to share what happened Wednesday. So, I left with a page of notes, and I was telling Laura a little bit about, this conversation that we were having about the guy who does the lead captures and using.
Oh, from the Wednesday session.
Yeah, artificial intelligence and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I was telling my wife about it Wednesday night that, here's what I did today. And she's like, but you're selling the business. Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to put the effort into that work if you're going to get out, right? And I said, because the business needs structure to make it viable for somebody else to buy it. I feel like some of these things I need to do to implement these things to make it better for me while I'm still here, but also to implement these things so it makes it saleable to somebody coming in the door. If I have a lead capture program that deals with that, wouldn't that be more appealing to somebody wanting to buy the business?
It sure is. It's not just more appealing. You actually get a bigger multiple on your EBITDA, which is, are you familiar with EBITDA?
I've heard it. But I don't know.
Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Yes.
That's essentially how a business can be evaluated, right? So, and then you get your multiple on that number. So let's say your number is $1 million. Mm-hmm. If you had $1 million EBITDA and then you get a multiple on that number, well, your multiple can be based on, how systematized and fine-tuned, well-oiled your business runs and operates without you. If you're the biggest value in the business, your EBITDA or your multiple is next to nothing because there's no real value in the business. So what we want to do is help you increase that multiple on your EBITDA by increasing the value of the business for a multitude of reasons. One of being which, if my marketing machine works great because my website is set up that not just attract and capture leads, but converts them in a machine that is set up, and I can show and prove that from the results I get from those numbers, that increases my multiple.
Yes.
So all of the stuff that we're doing every day in our business, all the stuff that we talk about at 4Level and in our sessions, it's all about increasing your multiple on your EBITDA at the end of the day. Now, that is a level 4 sellable business. Our whole goal is move you from level 1 and 2 to 3 and 4. We're not directly saying that we're impacting your multiple on your EBITDA, but we are. Because everything that we do actually impacts that long term someday.
Yes. Yeah.
Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you like this video. Grab your hammer, hit that bell so you don't miss any more of this content.
Laura and I were talking earlier this week about, we have a few things in place for standard operating procedures, but we were talking about specifically like with her, and I said, so, do we have written down instructions of how do we process draws? How do we process checks if we get checks? How do we process this? How do we we don't have that stuff written down.
Right. Yeah.
And those are things we should do, is that we should create a procedure for every one of those things. And she and I we kind of looking at each other. It's like, okay, you're just as indispensable as I am. If I left tomorrow, these things nobody would know how to do. Same thing with her. If she left tomorrow, there's stuff in this accounting system that nobody would know how to get to and how to do.
And then therefore, if the business valuable for an outside buyer when they can't see that. When I sold my business in 2017, I was able to sell it, and fairly quickly, actually. From the time I thought about it, decided, marketed it, to getting my check, it was 9 months. And that's pretty fast. Now, the reason being is because, one, I hadn't worked in that business for 10 years.
Okay.
That business ran and operated without me for 10 years.
It was already doing most of what it needed to do without you.
And so the value, like the buyer, one, he couldn't believe that was actually true. And so we proved that it was true by me not being in the business after he bought it to see how it would actually perform without me. Part of that was because they want a 1 year. This is also something that will likely come up. We negotiated a 1 year. After 1 year, I get my full payout. If the business had dropped during that year, I would get paid less. If the business went up, we negotiated I would get paid more. Well, the business grew substantially, like a couple of $1 million increase over the year I was gone, and I wasn't there. I never once went, and so he wanted proof. It's like, if that's true, I don't want you here for the next year, because I want to see what the business does if that's actually true. And then I'll pay you a lot less. And I think he was hoping it would actually dip a bit, so he would pay less, and then he would increase value later. Right? So anyway, and the business is systematized. It ran without me. He could, we showed him everything how the business was drives, including marketing and sales, and it was a machine. So he's like, yeah, I'll buy the machine. And I'll pay an industry high multiple for that machine too. And so ultimately for you, what I would like when you are ready to exit, to have that machine as tight as it can be, so that you get the biggest return at that time, right? Because otherwise you could leave hundreds of thousands, if not, $1 million or more on the table.
Right.
And I think, unfortunately, those that aren't prepared for that, they end up leaving that money on the table, or they can't sell it at all because there is no real value.
Right. That's the way I feel today. If I tried to sell this tomorrow, I don't think and Laura and I have talked about it, between the financial statements and how much the business is critical to function around me, there really isn't any value. And that's why probably, and I don't know what statistics looks like, but I'll bet 95% of construction businesses don't have any resale value.
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but if I base it on their understanding of the financials and how they look at their numbers, if we just take that in correlation, it's about 96 to 98%.
Yeah, I'll bet it is. I mean, we know that most of the builders in the country are small builders like me. They're the few at the top, the big guys. They have structure. They're saleable. They have their own stock portfolios usually.
And you're being a small builder. I mean, what your revenue again? Wasn't it?
We did last year.
I was going to say 7 or 9, I thought, but so it's not huge, but that's a reasonable size business.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good size business.
On your Zoom meetings all the time that are, trying to get to $1 million,
Right. There's some trying to get to $1 million, some that are heading towards 10, and there's some that are over, but they're not profitable. Even at 15 million, we're dealing with guys that aren't profitable either. I just got off the call this morning. They're doing about 6 million and they're simply not profitable. They make a living, but it's far from where they want to go. So yeah, I agree. There is a very large percentage that needs to get this stuff tight. So what are the things we need to get tight? One, essentially at some point, the more you can be removed from the day to day, the better, right? Essentially for increased value. Otherwise, the other thing that'll happen is you'll be required after you sell to stay in the business for a couple of years while they transition your value out, and that can be a big part of it. And then again, the business being systematized, if project management running the way it should, or do you have a system for hiring the teams and training them accordingly to what you want to do and how your business you want it to run? And is that set up so that they don't have to talk to you how to be taught and trained in?
So the short answer to that is no.
Yeah, we know that answer.
We're flying by the seat of our pants, right? We bring somebody in, we teach them through school of hard knocks. It's like, we'll teach you on the job how to do this.
And do you not find a lot of frustration dealing with, that way, as opposed to if we had a true training system that they actually really understood and knew what you want and need?
I think the issue is, I've looked at that for a few years now, and because of my previous experience with eMyth and going through a lot of structuring for that kind of stuff, we were in the throes of doing that when we
yeah.
And so some of the stuff that we need to do, I understand a little bit about what I need to do, and we were working on some of that. We really never executed. We were never got a chance to follow through on it.
Right.
So it's kind of like in the back of my mind. I've got what we need to do is just, how do we get there? And then the thing that I ran into at the last attempt at this was enough hours in the day. And so, I'm still trying to do everything I do to run the business, but now I'm trying to do this other job, which is creating these things that we need to move forward with our idea here. It's just there aren't enough hours in the day. And ironically, one of the last things that we did with our kind of quarterly review thing was, my big topic was organization of time. I'm all over the place. I'm putting out fires all day long still. I need an hour to work on whatever we're going to do. So it's just, how do I isolate myself?
Well, that would be essentially time blocking, right? And you're literally and physically shutting the door and blocking out the world from what you need to do to get focused on it. Now, again, it intuitively up here. Bandwidth and time is always the issue. But the truth is, if we allow that to continue to happen, you'll be 2 years from now and it still didn't happen. And the biggest value that you should have created got left on the table and you could not execute it.
I agree.
What's that worth? That could be worth $1 million to you.
Exactly. It's like if I'm not going to follow through and do it, what's the point of starting it?
Right. So herein lies honestly, the challenge with all builders, I believe that they come down to, is being able to execute on this plan with the bandwidth and time they have, because we're stretched too thin. We don't have the right people or enough people to get this done, right? But then we have to look at, what is the value or return on that investment if I did?
Right.
That's the question to me.
That's kind of where we were the last time when we were talking about, maybe I should be looking at bringing in that salesperson, and I'm even more motivated to do that when I see potential for this lead capture thing and what you could do with that, but you need somebody to handle it. So if I start picking up more of that and doing it myself, that's not doing me any favor that's not doing me any good long run. That's not going to make the program I want to do with you and move towards the exit door,
Right. Well, could not have said it better, Dennis. That's the whole thing. And when let's say you get that salesperson in place and they do a really good job, and now you have increased the value of the business because you actually have that in place that does not require you for this thing to actually continue on, right? It's so important. Now, I believe in order to teach and train that piece, that's a sales system, and it's real training to do that properly.
Yeah, I see it. I mean, I've had salespeople before, didn't do a proper job of training them. Imagine that they failed. It didn't work. They didn't know how to. And some of the people were very good people as far as communication, and they were good engaging with people. And it was like I've had one in the past, a couple of them in the past, that it seemed like they would be a good fit, but they couldn't bring people to the table. They didn't have what it took to say, okay, they didn't have the confidence. They didn't have the, whatever it takes to get people to say, let's move ahead with this. Just talk to people and never bring any sales in.
Well, and my guess is, I don't know in your case, but this is consistent and normal. You probably didn't have the bandwidth and time they really needed from you to spend the time to actually, again, teach and train them. And the thing is, our people are our biggest assets, right? People are not cost their investment. You have properties that you put money and time into that you are increasing the value of the investment. But our people that we have on our teams, we don't typically think of them as investments, because if we did, we would spend as much time and money on increasing the value of your investment with them as you do your properties.
Yep.
And then here's the thing, a property is going to be a one-time return. A person that's an A player that's getting teach and trained properly as an investment, right? That we actually think about that differently. Well, shit, that multiple on that investment is not a one-time. That is a never-ending, growing, evolving, multiplying investment. That'll make us more money than any property we ever had, like the right people, right? But we have to come from the mindset of they are not a cost, they're an investment. And if I was true to the way I handle my other investments, I would put a lot more focus and time into them as opposed to just throwing them out there and hoping my investment increases in value.
Right. Why would you take it so casually?
Because we're too busy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We're too busy on the hamster wheel trying to chase everything else that seemingly is going to help us make more money.
This is me working in the business, putting out fires all day long rather than working on the business.
Right. So we get that. We know that now it's the execution of the plan. And then the realization in your case, where you're maybe a couple of years away from saying, hey, I would like a real exit strategy.
Right.
Now, how am I going to do that? So are you seriously still considering or actually sort of ready to take action on a salesperson?
I think that I've talked to a few people. I think we're at a point where if I bring on another person, I need the ability to afford that person. We need to get the margins up so I can afford to do that.
Sure.
See an increase in margins. I think we're going
always the first step.
So we're increasing our profit margin, and I think we're at a point where, and I think you and I talked about this too, is that it doesn't make any sense not to bring that person on. We can afford to bring on that person, and that person will generate more volume, and they'll pay for their own salary basically. And so I think we're at a point where we kind of have to do that. I think they need a couple years of training. I'm going to have to spend a lot of time with them. One of the things I've run into in the past is bringing in a salesperson that doesn't have a lot of the same knowledge that I have is not very effective. And that's one of the things we ran into before. It was like clients know they're just a salesperson. They don't really have all the answers to building a home. And that's where I come in. And that's part of my success is that, I understand the building process. I understand how to build a house. I could do most of the things in a house myself if I had to build it from scratch. I have physically done most of those things over the course of my life.
Sure. Yeah.
So and that confidence, I think, comes across with people. The salespeople that I've hired in the past didn't have that kind of knowledge or understand it.
In today's world, it's more of an education-based selling.
Yeah.
And when you can't educate, then you've lost that whole piece. And that takes a couple of years of developing someone to get them up to the point where they're ready for that. So what you've really essentially uncovered and said is, I need to find somebody with some experience and knowledge in our business that has some sales capabilities that I can teach, train, and enhance to be able to do what I need to do. And what is, so you're seeing what you need on your team. Before you go ahead and do that, you mentioned about your own bandwidth and time. Have you gone through or seen our time finder system?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done that in the past too. I've done extensive time analysis.
Okay. When you go through that time finder system, and so if you've done this before, you know where you spend your time. But if you allocate that and you roll it through our system, what it's going to show you is, one, how much you actually work in the business as opposed to on the business.
Yep.
How much time you're actually spending in urgent as opposed to the not urgent but important. So in the right quadrants, right? So we're going to have very clear picture of, look, most of the time I'm going to find I'm working in the business and I'm spending most of my time in urgent. This is why clear picture. I don't get to what's most important to take my business to the point and systematize it so I can add more value when I sell, right? For you personally. Yeah. And so that's clear picture. Now, if I were to let go of this, and this, how much time does that free up? Like sales, like for example, if sales was gone, it would free me up X hours a week, right? Because I sell for whatever, or estimating all of the things that I'm doing, or running around chasing things, delivering material, whatever things I get caught up in doing. Now, if we remove those things, now we know who we have to give them to and what qualities and they need to have on our team. Right. So if I was able to free myself up, and it's always, I'm on every entrepreneur we've ever done this with, it's easily 20 plus hours a week that we can find that we probably shouldn't be doing, or we could easily delegate to. if we set them up properly. So now we know who we would actually need to set it up to. And I don't know, maybe it's a salesperson, maybe it's also a salesperson that has to take on a couple of other roles for you that will also free you.
Yes,
now I understand the job description, the roles and responsibility, and I can actually teach and train that in, and it's not just a salesperson.
What I see is we need a salesperson who is also willing to be that contact for the customer throughout the process. So not just I've sold it and pass it off to somebody. If you're in a big corporation, you can do that. I'm sales, I don't do anything else. They
Right.
give it to somebody else and it goes to a project manager or a contact person or whatever. I think that in a small company like this, where you're only building a couple of dozen houses a year, I think that salesperson needs to be the contact person. And some of the stuff that we find that's specifically difficult to deal with clients are change orders and selection process and some of those kinds of things. And right now I'm doing all of those things, but not doing some of it very well.
Well, because you end up with, again, thin on the bandwidth and time, trying to focus on 50 other things that you need to focus on to run the business and grow the business. So, I could not agree more. And essentially, the Time Finder system would uncover those things. You know what those things are. If, let's say, we took sales off your plate and all of those issues of change orders and selections and the things you get pulled into, my guess is it's got to be north of 20 hours a week.
Oh, I would think.
Let's say you're freed up 20 hours a week. Could you go close some more deals, build some more, find some more revenue in the business to grow the business?
Sure.
Could you find some more land? Could you?
We talked about cloning ourselves. It's like, we have this conversation all the time. It's like, okay, so, could I create a parallel, I guess, production department that created twice as many houses as what we're building now? I mean, we've got the land. We're at about 60 houses on a subdivision that's 180. We're building a couple dozen max, 15 to 25 a year. We could ramp up the volume.
Yeah. You get freed up 20 hours a week or plus. I have a feeling it's closer to 30, right? And I'm guessing, but it's almost always the case, right? If you were to take your efforts and energy and go do that and go ramp up that volume, like you say, duplicate that out, mirror image, could you increase volume? I know you said double, but even add 50%?
Probably.
Which means if you're doing, you could add another 4, you'd be million in sales, essentially. And this is the thing. We say, well, I'm not sure that we can afford that person right now. But when we do get that person and we can go and do that and we can increase revenue to that level all of a sudden, but we can't do that unless we had that person.
Right. Yeah, it's always a catch-22.
So it's like, as an entrepreneur, I believe we are constantly at the edge of the cliff. We are always deciding, am I ready to jump again? Because I've already jumped several times. I had to jump just to start the business. And I keep getting re-asked to jump, and it's like, okay, I'm at the next stage of my jump. Now for you, hey, a couple of years down the road, I would rather sell a business at 12 million over the next couple of years that's really dialed in than at that's not dialed in.
Why not?
Like that, the return on that investment for you, I think quite literally, I'm going to say well over $1 million is on the table if this is done right. So when we think about the decision of that salesperson, I actually believe that we could get into the guts of that and say, that's worth well over $1 million to me in 2 years from now if I do this right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty significant, important decision and role now. And I might take that role more seriously than I thought of just putting a salesperson in place before.
Right. True.
Anyway, that's what I believe we're uncovering here.
Makes sense. A lot of this is getting it in your mind. You have to visualize this in your mind of what this really does to you, for you. You have to envision where you're going with this.
Which is why I love that, Dennis, and why we always start with vision. Because if we don't have that to begin with, then how do I even decide or make any reason to do any of this? And if we as entrepreneurs can train ourselves to do the same thing and visualize what that looks like, feels like, but man, you got to have a vision to start with.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what are you getting up tomorrow to do? What is the purpose of why I'm adding a salesperson? Yes, I know that salesperson is going to be important, but what's my goal with that salesperson? And why would I, train in such a way or have them do X, right? And then what am I going to do with my time when I'm freed? Part of this is getting to that, say, million that might be left on the table in terms of revenue if you don't do this. But also, in the meantime, we need to think, because we have a vision of selling, how we're going to systematize the business a little bit so it's more ready for sale. So I need to get myself prepped for exit if I do grow a little bit in the process. So can I grow a little bit and prep myself for exit because that's my vision? Now I'm acting very differently than I would have if I didn't have that vision and plan. And then I wake up one day, say, hey, I'd like to sell my business.
Yeah.
Well, we're too late.
And then you have no choice but to just shut it down and walk away.
Yes. I mean, if you're literally done, yeah.
It's like and that's what a lot of builders do, is because they're not structured for somebody else to take over. And you've heard it from some of your clients, I just don't have the energy to do this. I guess I'm just going to keep doing this until I die.
And so sometimes we think, hey, I'm running a $15 million business. How can I possibly add any more? I can't, right? Actually, growth is the only way out to freedom, because we get more growth, more income, more revenue. We price it right. We are able to build teams, systematize around us. His life is far better with $25 million more that he's actually handling, and a lot less time in the business. The business runs now without him. So
most of the reasons people want to get out is because of the stress level. And that's where I'm at and the stress level is created by these things that we do. If I had people in place to deal with some of the obnoxious customer requests and some of those kinds of people.
You've heard me say, Dennis, we all have winning lottery tickets in our pocket. We just need to know how to cash it in.
Yeah.
Right. And essentially what we're talking about today is there's $1 million plus on the table for you. That's a lottery ticket.
It is. Yep.
Anything else you wanted to touch on or ask or make sure we cover?
I've gone into your educational programs a little bit and looked at, I wonder if there's something there that I shouldn't focus on. But I feel like I need to develop these systems and work on, a strategy. Do this and do this, kind of come up with a hit list of things. Here's what I need to do in the next 2 years to lay out, if I will, a kind of a master plan of what do I need to do in the next 2 years to accomplish this, and set some timelines for those things, because we all know it won't happen otherwise. There's different types of people. My people in the field are doing that kind of stuff where they're sending me pictures, they're prepping the grades, marking up the houses, sending me the photos. I process that kind of stuff. But that, like I said, I think that if we looked at a specific function like dealing with consumers' energy and then starting to build a list of what that clerical person could do, I got a feeling you'd fill a 40-hour week pretty quickly with all these tasks.
Well, the other thing is, when you hire that person, you want them to be your systems CIA. You've heard us talk about that.
Yes. Yep.
So they also needs to be a systems thinker. So it's great to have them do things and be able to take stuff off your plate. But if you have a systems CIA in that chair as well, they're now a systems thinker. So they're going to be able to create, help implement, and then keep people accountable to that system. And that is a percentage of their role and job. Like, imagine if they did that 10 or 15, let's say 10 hours a week. That they focused on systems for the next 2 years, then in 2 years, you'll actually be where you need to be, as opposed to, now that person, I'm going to say that they're not going to know exactly what's in your head. They have to work with you to pull it out and develop it.
But having somebody to actually, here's an idea.
Focus on it.
How do we focus on this and actually get this in creation, get it built and act on it?
So Dennis, this is another potential option. We do that for clients. We actually work with clients, work with their project managers, their project coordinators. You don't need to pay us to do it. You can get that person that you require to do other things and then teach and train them how to become your system CIA.
Right.
Right. Also, we could probably just help you find and develop that person. So what we also do is, we're hiring, we're training, interviewing,
you've known those people in your company. I mean, I look at the people you have on your staff that are engaging with me when we're in these programs.
Sure.
They're clearly that person. You have found that person.
Yeah. They're very much system CIAs. Like, they're all, and they have to be, like Megan is, Noelle is, Doug is, Tracy is. I think that's what is missing in most builder businesses is we don't really consider that as a role. We consider I just got a lot to do, and I need people to get the work done. I don't think of, well, I need somebody to actually focus on creating this, like turning this business into a well-oiled machine. But that is essentially what's missing here.
Yes.
So you can get, like, when you're thinking about your administrative person, we want to make sure that you hire a system CIA. Now, all of the tools are there. The job ad is in school. The interview questions are in school. The 10-point hiring process is what we follow. It's in school. Like, all of the content and tools are there for you. Even the role and responsibility of that system CIA, how they do their job properly, and so we have 8 steps to actually being that person.
Let's say I find that person. If I need help from you, are your people available to be hired to help, or how does that work?
Yeah, I would say we don't typically do that on a one-off basis, but I can for you, for sure. You know, we'll just decide, hey, this is whatever. You need some training. Like, Tracy could spend a month with the person, you know, spend a couple hours a week with that person, getting them trained on how to do this, what to look for. They can start by just following and using all of our video and content and tools. You know, that's fine too, but sometimes you just need one-on-one and work with them.
Yeah, that's what I wonder. I mean, and this depends on whether you find the right person or not, obviously.
That's the most important key first. Now, I also will suggest, like, our hiring process includes, I believe, to find that person, you need to do a Kolbe assessment. That Kolbe, Kolbe. And we're looking for a particular Kolbe number. If they are that person, they are very much a systems thinker. Like, look, I'm a systems thinker. I take very complex things and I simplify them down, and I know what I want, but I will never be the one to be the creator. It's not my skill set at all. So I will not, all of it's up here. I know what I want, big picture, big vision, but I'm not the creator. Well, I'm certainly not the implementer.
You surrounded yourself with people that can. Do.
I trust them, and I literally do trust them. So yes, if you want some help along the way, once you get that person in the seat, but seriously follow that 10-step hiring process and utilize the tools in school, you know, the job ad, the interview questions, the Kolbe, all of that stuff. It's going to help you with that role.
I have gotten into that a little bit, and I think I've printed out some of those documents and stuff, so I've got it started.
We actually do get involved with businesses that need help beyond the coaching. And I think most do in this industry. That's why we're doing more of this.
I think for selected clients, the ones that have potential that you can actually do something with. Yes, I think you're right.
You know, we have what we call our inner circle. We get paid on a revenue share with some clients that we are very, very involved in their business. You know, it's just different levels of what people ultimately want and need. You know, yours is unique because you're actually looking to exit at some point here soon.
Right.
Look, if you want more help beyond to implement and execute these things that you're trying to develop, my guess is there is $1 million on the table if you crush this. If you do this right, probably an extra $1 million on the table. The big capital investors are looking for businesses that are not going to be disrupted, like home building, remodeling, contracting, plumbers, electricians. Like these are all businesses where big capital investments are coming in. And I think in a couple of years, you're going to see massive multiples on EBITDAs, especially for those businesses that are dialed in because they want a place to put their money. Well, let's go have some fun and get this done then.
All right.
You let me know if you need further help, Dennis. But otherwise, you know, team's there to help us as you need on what we normally do. But beyond that, we can work something out too.
I'll reach out as I get into it.
You can. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Imagine doing one of these calls on a monthly basis with either myself or our team. Guys, if you want to check it out and learn how to become a freedom builder in our core program, jump into that description, book a call with us, and we'll see you on the other side.